Marcus Chin stood in his kitchen at 6:30 on a Monday morning, watching butter sizzle across the cast iron pan with the kind of focus most people reserved for spreadsheets. The pancake batter hit the surface in a perfect circle. He'd learned the wrist flick from a YouTube video 8 years ago, back when Lily was 6 and crying because the pancakes at IHOP were better than his. Now his were better than IHOP's. Small victories, Dad, this error message makes zero sense. Lily hunched over her laptop at the kitchen table, her dark hair falling forward like a curtain. The laptop was a Frankenstein's monster of duct tape and determination, its original casing long since replaced by whatever Amazon sold in bulk. It says the function returned none, but the function literally can't return none. I put in a default value. Marcus flipped the pancake without looking. Check your conditionals. You probably have an if statement that's catching before your default. Oh crap, you're right. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, the sound sharp and rhythmic. How did you even? Never mind. Fixed it. The morning light came through the kitchen window at an angle that made everything look softer than it was. The curtains were the same ones Sarah had picked out 14 years ago, back when they'd bought this house and thought a craftsman fixer-upper in a decent school district was the height of ambition. The fabric had faded from teal to something closer to dishwater gray, but Marcus couldn't bring himself to replace them. Some things you kept not because they were beautiful, but because they remembered better days than you did. His phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at the screen while sliding the pancake onto Lily's plate. Unknown number. He swiped it away. Syrup's in the fridge, he said. I know where the syrup is, Dad. I've lived here my entire life. But she was smiling when she said it, that half-smirk she'd inherited from Sarah along with the sharp chin and the inability to let anyone help her with anything. She drenched her pancakes in enough syrup to qualify as a war crime against breakfast food. Marcus poured himself coffee from the ancient Mr. Coffee machine that had outlived 3 presidents and his marriage. The mug said "World's Okayest Teacher," a gift from his students last Christmas. He'd laughed when he opened it, then felt something crack open in his chest, because they'd meant it as a joke but also as the truth. He was okay. He was fine. He was surviving, and in some neighborhoods that counted as winning. His phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time he picked it up. Stop calling this number, he said by way of greeting, Iron Ghost. The voice on the other end was male, clipped, expensive. The kind of voice that came from boarding schools and summer homes. We have a situation. Marcus walked out onto the back porch, leaving Lily to her pancakes and her code. The morning air was cool enough to make him wish he'd grabbed his jacket, but not cool enough to make him go back inside. The neighborhood was waking up around him. Someone's sprinkler system hissed to life 3 houses down. A dog barked. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. There is no iron ghost, Marcus said quietly. There's just a shop teacher who's about to be late for work. The Koreans breached Sentinel defense. They're inside the civilian drone network. We need someone who can ghost their ghost. Marcus closed his eyes. Behind his eyelids he could see code, strings of it. Beautiful and terrible, the kind of architecture that took years to build and seconds to crack if you knew where to look. He knew where to look. He'd always known where to look. Call Jensen at Blackthorn. Jensen said only you could handle this. His words were, and I quote, "Get me Iron Ghost or get me the National Guard, those are your options. Then I guess you'd better mobilize the National Guard." Marcus opened his eyes. Across the fence, his neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez was putting out her recycling bin. She waved. He waved back. I've got a parent-teacher conference at 4 and a robotics team meeting at 5:30. Someone else saves the world on Mondays. He hung up. His hands were steady. They'd been steady for 6 years, Ever since the day he'd walked away from Blackthorn Security with a severance package and a reputation that preceded him into every room like a ghost. Iron Ghost. The handle he'd earned by breaking into systems so quietly that forensic teams couldn't prove he'd been there at all. He'd been the best. Everyone said so. And then Sarah had gotten sick and Lily had been 8 years old and crying in hospital waiting rooms, and Marcus had realized that being the best at something that required him to disappear into code for 70 hours a week meant being the worst at everything that actually mattered, so he'd stopped. Cold turkey. He'd taken the teaching job at Lincoln High because it had summers off and because shop class ended at 3:15 and because nobody called you in the middle of the night asking you to save democracy from teenagers in North Korea who'd learned to code before they learned to drive. His phone buzzed a third time. He turned it off without looking. Inside, Lily had finished her pancakes and was loading her plate into the dishwasher with the efficiency of someone who'd been doing chores since she could walk. Was that another recruiter? Wrong number. The lie came easily. He'd gotten good at lies, the small ones that protected people from truths they didn't need to carry. You ready for school? I'm ready for school to be over. Can we work on the robot tonight? I think I figured out the servo problem, absolutely. After dinner, they moved through the morning routine with the synchronization of a 2-person dance team. Backpack, lunch, laptop charger that Lily always forgot until Marcus held it up silently. She grabbed it with a sheepish grin. They climbed into his 2015 Honda Civic, which started on the second try and made a sound like an asthmatic seal when he put it in reverse. The check engine light had been on since 2019. Marcus had stopped caring somewhere around 2020. Lincoln High School smelled like floor wax and hormones and the particular desperation of underfunded public education. Marcus's classroom was in the old industrial arts wing, a relic from when schools still believed in teaching kids to work with their hands. The room was half workshop, half computer lab, filled with welding equipment and 3D printers and a bank of refurbished computers he'd assembled himself from parts salvaged from the district's e-waste stream. His first period was sophomore robotics. 18 kids, mostly boys, a few girls who'd had to fight their counselors to get into the class instead of digital design or culinary arts. Marcus started every class the same way. Tell me what you broke over the weekend, he said. Jamal raised his hand. I broke my robot's arm off trying to make it lift a gallon of milk. Good. Why? Because I didn't calculate the torque. Because you didn't calculate the torque. And now you know more than you did Friday. Breaking things is how we learn, as long as we're paying attention to why they broke. Anybody else? The class settled into its rhythm. Marcus moved between workstations, answering questions, correcting assumptions, occasionally taking a soldering iron out of someone's hand before they burned themselves. He was good at this. Not great, maybe not even memorable, but good enough that kids kept signing up for his classes and sometimes sent him emails years later saying they'd gotten into engineering programs or coding boot camps because of something he'd taught them. At lunch he ate a sandwich at his desk while responding to parent emails and requisitioning supplies that the school probably couldn't afford. The principal, Dr. Mendez, stuck her head in around 1 o'clock. Marcus, you got a minute? He knew that tone. That was the tone that came before bad news delivered kindly. Sure. Come in. She closed the door behind her, which made it worse. Dr. Mendez was 50, Latina, running on coffee and spite and a master's degree in education that she'd earned while working full-time and raising 3 kids. Marcus respected her enormously and trusted her not at all, because administrators couldn't be trusted even when they were good people. It wasn't personal. It was structural. The district is looking at next year's budget, she said. They're talking about cutting the industrial arts program entirely. Marcus set down his sandwich. Shop class has been part of this school for 60 years, shop class doesn't boost test scores. Shop class doesn't get kids into college. At least, that's what they're going to say at the board meeting next month. She looked tired. She looked like someone who'd had this conversation before in other schools with other teachers. I'm going to fight it. But I wanted you to hear it from me first. After she left, Marcus sat alone in his classroom and looked at the equipment around him. The drill press someone's grandfather had donated. The welding station he'd installed himself. The 3D printers he'd bought with grant money and optimism. All of it precarious. All of it temporary. Nothing lasted. Not jobs, not marriages, not even the curtains Sarah had picked out with such care. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He'd turned it back on out of habit. This time it was a number he recognized. Trevor. His younger brother, who called twice a year on Christmas and Marcus's birthday and sometimes not even then. Marcus stared at the screen until the call went to voicemail. Then, because some obligations persisted even when you didn't want them to, he called back, Marcus. Trevor sounded nervous. Trevor always sounded nervous, like he was waiting for someone to tell him he'd done something wrong. Hey. Thanks for calling back, what's up? So, Victoria wanted me to invite you to Thanksgiving. At our new place. She really wants the whole family there. Marcus processed this information slowly, the way you might process the news that you needed a root canal. Victoria. Trevor's wife. Victoria, who worked in real estate and drove a Range Rover with vanity plates. Victoria, who had opinions about Marcus's life that she shared frequently and without invitation. Trevor, every time Lily and I come to your house, Victoria spends 2 hours making comments about my job. I know. I know she can be. Look, she's been in therapy. She's working on stuff. And honestly, man, I miss you. Lily needs her cousins. Just give her one more chance. The thing about family was that it persisted whether you wanted it to or not. Blood was supposed to mean something, even when you'd spent the last 5 years proving it didn't. And Trevor was still his brother, even if Trevor had married someone who measured human worth in square footage and German automotive engineering. Let me talk to Lily, Marcus said. That night, after they'd worked on the robot until Lily's eyes were drooping and Marcus's back was complaining about too many hours bent over a workbench, he brought it up. They were sitting in the living room, some Netflix show playing on the TV Sarah had picked out in 2014. Everything in this house was from 2014 or earlier. Frozen in time like a museum exhibit about when life had been normal. Uncle Trevor invited us for Thanksgiving, Marcus said. Lily looked up from her laptop. At Aunt Victoria's house, yeah. The one where she spent an hour talking about how my hoodie was from Target like that was a war crime. That's the one. Lily closed her laptop. She had Sarah's way of thinking, slow and careful, turning things over until she understood all the angles. Do you want to go? I want you to have family. Real family, not just me. You are real family. You're the realest family I've got. She picked at the duct tape holding her laptop together. But I guess I should probably learn to deal with people like Aunt Victoria. College is going to be full of people like her, right? Probably. Okay. Then let's go. But if she says anything about you, I'm going to say something back. Deal? They shook on it, her hand small in his, both of them knowing this was probably a mistake but doing it anyway because that's what family meant. Showing up even when you didn't want to. Especially when you didn't want to. The week crawled by. Marcus taught his classes, helped Lily debug code, ignored 3 more calls from unknown numbers that were probably national security and definitely not his problem. On Wednesday night he opened the garage and stood looking at the locked cabinet in the back corner, behind the paint cans and the broken lawnmower he kept meaning to fix. Inside that cabinet was a server rack. Inside that server rack was hardware he'd built himself, custom processors and encrypted drives containing things that several governments would pay seven figures to access. He closed the garage without opening the cabinet. Thursday he woke up at 5 a.m. from a dream about Sarah, the kind of dream where she was alive and healthy and laughing at one of his jokes, and the waking up was like dying all over again. He lay in bed until his alarm went off, then got up and made pancakes because that's what you did. You made pancakes and you went to work and you pretended the hole in your chest was just part of the architecture, load-bearing grief that kept the whole structure standing. Thanksgiving arrived the way difficult things always did, inevitable and unwanted. Marcus put on his good jeans and a button-down shirt that had only been through the wash 100 times instead of 1,000. Lily wore a blue sweater and leggings, and she'd let Marcus braid her hair, something she only let him do on special occasions because she was 14 and touch was complicated. They drove to Victoria's house in the Civic, which made its seal barking sound every time Marcus shifted gears. The house was in one of those developments where every home cost more than Marcus would make in a decade of teaching, all white stone and massive windows and landscaping that required full-time maintenance. Victoria's Range Rover sat in the circular driveway like a monument to excess. Trevor's BMW was parked beside it. Marcus pulled in next to a Mercedes he didn't recognize and turned off the engine. The Civic shuddered and died with what sounded like relief. "Ready?" he asked Lily. "Ready." They walked to the door together. Marcus rang the bell, which played an 8-note chime that probably cost more than his kitchen table. Victoria answered, blonde and polished and smiling in a way that involved her mouth but not her eyes. "Marcus." She air-kissed near his cheek, her perfume expensive and sharp. "And Lily." "Oh sweetie, is that Old Navy?" "How nostalgic, it's from Target," Lily said flatly. "We shop there because the clothes are affordable and well-made." Victoria's smile didn't waver. "Of course you do. Come in, come in." The house was exactly what Marcus had expected. White marble floors that showed every footprint. A chandelier in the entryway that belonged in a hotel lobby. Photographs on the walls that looked professionally staged. Victoria and Trevor and their two kids arranged in outfits that matched the season and the decor. Everything was expensive. Everything was cold. Marcus had been inside for 30 seconds and already wanted to leave. The dining room seated 20. Victoria had set the table with china so delicate Marcus was afraid to breathe near it. Place cards marked where everyone should sit. Marcus found his name at the far end of the table, on what was clearly an extension normally reserved for children. Lily's card was next to his. Trevor's was near the head of the table, close to Victoria. Her brother Richard was at Victoria's right hand. The power dynamics were written in seating arrangements. "Marcus, you're at the kids' end." Victoria announced this loudly enough for everyone in the room to hear. She was wearing a white dress that probably cost more than Marcus's mortgage payment. "Oh wait, that's probably more your intellectual level anyway." "Don't worry, at least you're with Lily." Trevor looked uncomfortable. Richard, Victoria's hedge fund manager brother, looked amused. Marcus felt Lily tense beside him. He squeezed her hand under the table and smiled at Victoria. "Thanks for having us," he said mildly. "Dinner was catered." Of course it was. Probably cost $5,000. Turkey and prime rib and sides that came on serving platters. Wine flowed, expensive bottles that Richard kept commenting on. Marcus drank water. Lily picked at her food. At the other end of the table, Victoria held court, talking about sales and commissions and a waterfront property she'd just listed for $8 million. "Marcus." Richard leaned forward, his smile sharp. "Trevor says you're teaching now." "Shop class, industrial arts. We cover welding, basic programming, robotics, 3D printing." How wonderful that some people are content with mediocrity. Victoria's voice cut through the conversation like a knife. I mean, not everyone can be ambitious. The world needs ditch diggers too, right, Victoria? Trevor started. What? I'm complimenting his consistency. 15 years of the exact same job. That takes a special kind of dedication. Marcus cut his turkey with careful precision. I like teaching. The kids are great, I'm sure they are. It must be fulfilling, working with other people's children. Especially after you gave up that computer thing you used to do. What was it? Tech support, security consulting. Marcus kept his voice level. Under the table, his left hand was gripping his knee hard enough to hurt. I did penetration testing and threat assessment for corporate networks, right? And now you teach teenagers to use power tools. That's quite the career trajectory. Victoria sipped her wine, looking pleased with herself. But I suppose we all have to find our level. After dinner, the men went outside to look at Richard's new Porsche. Marcus went because Trevor gave him a pleading look, and because refusing would have caused a scene. The car was red and low and cost more than Marcus had paid for his house. Richard talked about torque and 0 to 60 times. Trevor nodded along. Marcus stood with his hands in his pockets and watched clouds move across the night sky. Marcus, what are you driving these days? Richard asked. The Civic. Still runs great. That thing must be what, 10 years old, closer to 12. But like I said, runs great. Victoria appeared with her wine glass, drawn by the scent of humiliation like a shark to blood. Marcus, that car is older than some of my clients' marriages. Doesn't it embarrass you? Pulling up to Lily's school in that thing? I'm not embarrassed of my dad. Lily had followed them outside, her voice tight and furious. And anybody who judges people by what car they drive is shallow and mean. Victoria's expression shifted into something Marcus recognized. Fake sympathy, the kind people used when they wanted to hurt you while pretending to help. Oh honey, of course you're not embarrassed. You don't know any better. But when you're older, you'll understand that image matters. First impressions. Professional presentation. Which reminds me, I have something I want to talk to everyone about. Let's go back inside for dessert. They gathered in the dining room again. Victoria tapped her wine glass with her fork, waiting for silence. When she had everyone's attention, she smiled. I have an announcement. Trevor and I have decided to sponsor Lily's education. Marcus felt the floor shift under him. What? We're hiring a top-tier computer science tutor for Lily. I've done my research, Marcus, and honestly, shop teachers aren't exactly qualified to guide a young woman into the tech industry. Lily needs proper mentorship if she's going to have a real future. The room went silent. Marcus could hear his heartbeat in his ears, could feel Lily's eyes on him, waiting to see what he would do. Victoria, maybe we should have discussed this privately, Trevor started, but Victoria cut him off. Discussed what? That your brother is raising his daughter in poverty? That Lily wears hoodies from Target and uses a laptop that's held together with tape? Someone has to step up, and apparently it's going to be me. My dad is the best teacher I've ever had. Lily's voice shook, but she kept going. He taught me Python and Java and how to build computers from scratch. He's the one who got me interested in robotics. I don't need your tutor, sweetie, loyalty is admirable. But let's be honest. Your father gave up. He had some computer job 20 years ago and couldn't hack it, so he settled. I won't let you settle. The tutor starts next week. I've already paid her $3,000. Marcus stood slowly. His hands were steady. His voice was steady. Everything was steady except the fury burning in his chest like a solar flare. Victoria, thank you for dinner. Lily, get your coat, oh Marcus. Don't be dramatic. I'm helping, you're humiliating. There's a difference, Victoria's eyes flashed. Is it humiliating to point out that you live in a house worth less than my wine cellar? That you drive a car I wouldn't donate to charity? That your daughter deserves better than a father who gave up on ambition? Victoria, that's enough. Trevor tried again, but Victoria was on a roll. No. Someone needs to say it. Marcus, you had potential once. Everyone says so. And you threw it away to become what? A glorified babysitter for other people's kids? I'm offering Lily a way out of your mediocrity. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then at Trevor, who couldn't meet his eyes. Then at Richard, who was watching like this was entertainment. Then at Lily, whose face was streaked with tears. Come on, Lily. We're going home, Victoria called after them as they walked to the door. The tutor's name is Elena Rodriguez. She'll be at your house Monday at 6 p.m. I've already paid her, so at least have the decency to answer the door. Marcus didn't respond. He helped Lily into the Civic, started the engine on the second try, and drove away from that white marble monument to everything he'd chosen to leave behind. They were halfway home before Lily spoke. I don't need a tutor, Dad. I don't care what she says. I know, sweetheart. Why does she hate you so much? Marcus gripped the steering wheel, watching traffic lights blur past. She doesn't hate me. She just measures people differently than we do. Her measuring stick sucks. Language. But he was smiling slightly. Yeah. It really does. That night, after Lily had gone to bed still angry, still crying, Marcus sat in his workshop staring at the locked cabinet. He pulled the key from behind the fuse box where he'd hidden it 6 years ago. Opened the cabinet. Turned on the server rack. It hummed to life, LEDs blinking green and amber, processors spinning up with a sound like distant thunder. He pulled out an old phone from the bottom drawer, one he hadn't touched since the day he'd walked away from Blackthorn. Turned it on, the screen lit up. 247 unread messages scrolled past. Iron Ghost, we need you. Name your price. Blackthorn is offering $50,000 per hour. The SEC needs your testimony. Ghost, please. It's urgent. Marcus scrolled through them all, his face expressionless. Then he opened a new message. Typed 6 words, I'm listening. What's the situation? He hit send. Put the phone on the workbench. Stared at it like it was a bomb that might explode. It buzzed within 30 seconds. Marcus stared at his phone screen, the glowing text blurring slightly in the dim light of his workshop. The message had come through at 11:43 p.m., 3 days after he'd sent those 6 words into the void. He'd expected a response in seconds, maybe minutes. The delay had been calculated, professional. It told him everything he needed to know about who was on the other end. The text read, Koreans are inside Sentinel's civilian drone network. Jensen says you're the only one who can ghost their ghost. $50,000 per hour. How soon can you start? Marcus set the phone down on the workbench next to the server rack that hummed its quiet song of processing power and possibility. His hands were steady. They'd been steady through Sarah's diagnosis, through the chemo that didn't work, through teaching himself to braid Lily's hair from YouTube videos at 2 a.m. when grief made sleep impossible. They could stay steady now, he typed, not interested in the money. Send me the access credentials. I'll look at it over the weekend. The response came faster this time. You'll do it for free? Marcus smiled without humor. I'll do it because civilian infrastructure shouldn't be vulnerable to hostile actors. Whether you pay me is irrelevant to that fact. Ghost, we need you on retainer. This won't be the last time, this is the last time. Send the credentials or find someone else. He turned off the phone before they could argue. Some conversations didn't benefit from continuation. The workshop was cold. November in Northern California meant nights that required jackets and mornings that promised nothing. Marcus pulled an old hoodie over his flannel shirt and sat down at his custom workstation. The mechanical keyboard he'd claimed came from a garage sale clicking under his fingers as he logged into systems he hadn't touched in 6 years. The muscle memory was still there, buried but intact, like riding a bike or throwing a punch or any of the other things your body remembered even when your conscious mind wanted to forget. The server rack purred as he spun up virtual machines, routing his connection through 7 different proxy servers across 4 continents. Old habits. Good habits. The kind that kept you alive in a world where information was currency and anonymity was armor. He worked until 3 a.m. Until his eyes burned and his back complained, and he remembered why he'd quit this in the first place. It wasn't just Sarah, though that had been the catalyst. It was the realization that he could spend his entire life being the best at something that required him to hide, to vanish, to be a ghost, or he could be present for the one person who needed him to be real. Before logging off, he opened an encrypted folder he hadn't accessed since the day he'd walked away from Blackthorn Security. Inside were case files, contracts, correspondence with people whose names appeared in newspapers and whose decisions shaped markets. He scanned through them with the detachment of someone reading ancient history about a stranger. There was a photo buried in the files. Marcus at 32, 20 pounds heavier from stress-eating takeout at midnight, wearing a suit that cost more than his current monthly salary, shaking hands with a Silicon Valley CEO whose company had just avoided a catastrophic data breach. Marcus was smiling in the photo, but his eyes were exhausted, already looking for the exit. He closed the folder, shut down the server rack, locked the cabinet and returned the key to its hiding place behind the fuse box. Upstairs, Lily's bedroom door was cracked open, pale light spilling into the hallway. She was supposed to be asleep. Marcus pushed the door wider and found her at her desk, laptop open. The glow painting her face blue-white. "It's 3 a.m., he said quietly. She jumped, minimizing windows with practiced speed. Not fast enough. Marcus had already seen the search terms: Iron Ghost Cybersecurity, Marcus Chin Blackthorn Security, Phantom Protocol 2019. Dad, I can explain, you Googled me. He came into the room, sat on the edge of her bed. The mattress creaked. Everything in this house creaked, announcing presence and age and the passage of time. What did you find? Lily turned to face him, and there was something in her expression he'd never seen before. Not disappointment or anger, but something closer to awe, tinged with hurt. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? That you were famous. That you saved companies. That people wrote articles about you. Dad, there are forum posts where people call you a legend. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands, feeling every hour of missed sleep settling into his bones. Because I'm not that person anymore. But you were. I was a lot of things. I was also someone who missed your school plays because I was on a call with the NSA. Someone who forgot your mother's birthday because I was in Singapore fixing a security breach. Being Iron Ghost made me good at my job and terrible at everything else. Lily pulled her knees to her chest, making herself smaller. Did you quit because of Mom? I quit because I looked at my life and realized I was solving problems for strangers while ignoring the people who actually mattered. Your mom got sick and suddenly all those important clients and urgent contracts seemed less important than making sure you ate breakfast and did your homework. He met her eyes. I don't regret leaving. Not once. Even though you could have made millions, especially because of that. Marcus stood, moved to her desk, closed her laptop gently. Money's just numbers in a database, sweetheart. Time is the only thing you can't get back. I chose to spend mine with you. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, Elena seemed really impressed by you. Marcus felt his face grow warm. She was impressed by someone I used to be, she was impressed by who you are now. I watched her, Dad. The way she looked at you when you talked about teaching. She thinks you're amazing, she barely knows me, she knows enough. Lily grinned, and it was so much like Sarah's grin that Marcus's chest hurt. She's coming back Monday. Right? For tutoring I apparently don't need, about that, I like her. You should ask her out, Lily. Mom's been gone 5 years, Dad. She wouldn't want you to be alone forever. Lily's voice softened. And Elena's smart and pretty and she thinks you're cool. That's like finding a unicorn. Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he just kissed the top of his daughter's head. Go to sleep. We'll talk about this when it's not 3 in the morning. That's not a no, that's a go to sleep before I ground you. She laughed, and he left her there, closing the door behind him. In his own room, Marcus lay on top of the covers and stared at the ceiling, thinking about Elena's smile and Victoria's cruelty and the server rack humming in his workshop like a sleeping dragon that had just opened one eye. Friday morning arrived cold and bright. Marcus made pancakes while Lily did homework at the kitchen table, both of them moving through their routine with the comfortable silence of people who'd learned to read each other's moods. The phone buzzed twice. Marcus ignored it. Teaching didn't allow for distractions, and first period started in 40 minutes. Lincoln High felt different that day, though Marcus couldn't pinpoint why. His students were the same, the equipment was the same, even the burnt coffee smell in the teacher's lounge was the same. But something had shifted, some internal recalibration that made him see everything through a different lens. He watched Jamal successfully weld 2 pieces of metal together and felt proud in a way that was pure and uncomplicated. No clients, no contracts, no pressure beyond helping a 16-year-old kid learn a skill that might someday help him build a life. At lunch, Dr. Mendez stopped by his classroom again. This time she was smiling. Good news. The board voted to keep the industrial arts program. One of the parents is a tech CEO, apparently, and she gave a whole speech about the importance of hands-on learning and maker spaces. We're safe for now. Marcus felt tension he hadn't known he was carrying drain from his shoulders. That's great. Thank you for fighting for us, thank you for being worth fighting for. She hesitated in the doorway. Marcus, I know we don't pay you what you're worth. I know you could probably make more doing anything else. But these kids need you. You're good at this. After she left, Marcus sat at his desk and thought about worth, about how Victoria measured it in square footage in German engineering while Dr. Mendez measured it in the lives changed by the patience to teach a scared kid how to use a band saw without losing a finger. Different metrics. Different worlds. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. Trevor, Victoria wants to make sure you're coming to my promotion dinner Friday night. She said she has a surprise. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment before responding. I'll be there. Trevor, really? You're not mad about Thanksgiving? Marcus typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, family's family. Congratulations on the promotion. He wasn't sure he meant it, but some lies were necessary for structural integrity. That evening, Elena texted, coffee tomorrow? I promised to be less intense than our first meeting. Maybe only 70% as intense. Marcus smiled despite himself and typed, Saturday 10 a.m.? There's a place near the high school. It's a date. Well, not a date. Unless you want it to be? I'm overthinking this. See you at 10. Lily read the exchange over his shoulder. Dad. She's adorable, she's professional, she's professionally adorable. Wear the blue shirt. Saturday morning Marcus wore the blue shirt, the one Lily had given him last Christmas that he'd been saving for an occasion that felt worthy of it. The coffee shop was a local place, exposed brick and mismatched furniture, the kind of place that served lattes with foam art and played indie music at conversational volume. Elena was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her. "I got you black coffee with room for cream," she said. "But if you want something fancier I can, black coffee is perfect." Marcus sat down across from her. She was wearing jeans and a gray sweater, no makeup that he could detect, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger like this, more approachable, though no less striking. "Thanks for this, thanks for agreeing to it. I wasn't sure you would." She wrapped both hands around her cup like she was absorbing its warmth. "I need to apologize for Monday. I came on really strong and you probably thought I was insane. I thought you were confident." "There's a difference, I was terrified." She laughed, and it was a real laugh, unguarded. "I'd been wondering about Iron Ghost for 5 years. Built this whole mythology in my head. Then I show up to tutor his daughter and he's just this normal guy making dinner in a flannel shirt and I panicked. I am just a normal guy, you're really not." Elena leaned forward. "Normal guys don't walk away from million-dollar careers to raise their kids. Normal guys don't teach for 15 years at a school that can barely afford supplies. Normal guys don't, I don't know, have this presence that makes people want to be better versions of themselves." Marcus felt his face grow hot. "You're giving me way too much credit, I'm giving you exactly the right amount of credit." She paused, studying him. "Can I ask you something personal? Depends on the question. Why did Victoria hire me?" Like, what was her actual goal? Marcus sipped his coffee, considering how much to share. "Victoria believes I'm a failure. She believes Lily deserves better than what I can provide. Hiring you was her way of proving that point while pretending to be generous. That's messed up, that's Victoria." Marcus set down his cup. "But here's the thing. She's not wrong that Lily deserves better. She's just wrong about what better means. Better doesn't mean expensive tutors and fancy schools. Better means having a parent who shows up. Who teaches by example. Who values character over status." Elena's eyes were bright with something that looked like anger on his behalf. "Victoria measures worth in dollars. You measure it in impact. Those are incompatible worldviews." They talked for 3 hours. Elena told him about growing up in a small town in Arizona, daughter of immigrants, first in her family to go to college. She'd worked 3 jobs at MIT, sleeping 4 hours a night, living on ramen and determination. She'd graduated top of her class and immediately gone into security consulting because that's where the money was. Where she could finally breathe without checking her bank account first. Marcus told her about meeting Sarah in college, how she'd been a literature major who thought computer science students were socially inept and he'd been arrogant enough to think he could prove her wrong. How their first date had been an argument about whether technology would save or destroy humanity, and how they'd still been having that argument the day she died. "She sounds amazing," Elena said softly. "She was. She balanced me. Made me remember there was a world outside of code and systems." Marcus smiled, and it hurt in the way old injuries hurt when it rained. "When she got sick, all my skills were useless. I couldn't hack cancer. I couldn't write a program to fix her. I was the best in the world at solving digital problems and completely helpless against the one that mattered." Elena reached across the table and took his hand. The gesture was simple, human, grounding. "You weren't helpless. You were present." "That's not the same thing." They sat like that for a moment, hands linked across scarred wood, the coffee shop busy with weekend morning energy around them. Then Elena pulled back, clearing her throat. "So. Trevor's promotion dinner. Friday night, you heard about that? Victoria told me when she hired me. She said, and I quote, Even the family embarrassment will be there. So dress nicely. Elena's jaw tightened. She's going to be insufferable. You know that, right? I'm counting on it. What do you mean? Marcus hesitated, then decided to trust her with the truth. I sent a message to my old contacts. Took a consulting job. Just one, just to prove to myself I still can. Victoria thinks I'm a has-been who couldn't hack it in tech. I'm going to let her keep thinking that, and then nothing. I go back to teaching. She learns nothing. Life continues. He met Elena's eyes. Revenge isn't the goal here. Survival is. Elena was quiet for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. Then she said, "What if you didn't go alone?" "What?" "To the dinner." "What if I came with you?" As your date, Marcus felt something shift in his chest, part hope and part terror. "Elena, hear me out. Victoria hired me as evidence of your inadequacy. What if I showed up and made it clear I think you're extraordinary? Not because you're Iron Ghost, but because you're you. A good father. A good teacher. A good man." She leaned forward, her voice intense. "Let me be the mirror that reflects who you actually are instead of who she thinks you are. That's not fair to you. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you taught a terrified junior analyst how to save her company when you could have just done it yourself in a fraction of the time. I know you gave up a fortune to be present for your daughter. I know you still wear your wedding ring even though your wife has been gone for 5 years." She nodded at his left hand. "Those things tell me who you are." Marcus looked down at the simple gold band he'd never been able to take off. "It feels disloyal. Moving on, it's not disloyal to live. Your wife would want you to live." Elena's voice was gentle but firm. "And maybe I'm being too forward again, but I like you. I like talking to you. I like that you make me want to be braver and kinder and more present. So let me come to this dinner and stand next to you while Victoria tries to tear you down. Let me be evidence that she's wrong about everything." "You'd do that?" "For someone you just met, I'd do it for someone I've admired for 5 years and who, upon meeting, exceeded every expectation." She smiled, and there was mischief in it. "Also, I really want to see Victoria's face when she realizes she paid $3,000 for me to fall for her brother-in-law. We just," Marcus stumbled over his words, "feeling 16 instead of 38. We're having coffee and holding hands and I'm making you blush. That's something." Elena stood, gathering her things. "Think about it. If you decide you want company Friday night, text me. If not, no hard feelings. Either way, I'd like to keep doing this. The coffee thing. The talking thing. The getting to know you thing." Marcus stood too. "I'd like that." They walked out together into cold November sunshine. Elena's car was parked next to his Civic, a sleek Tesla that made his Honda look like it belonged in a museum. She caught him looking and laughed. "Impressive, right? Cost me $80,000 and has a range of 300 miles. She patted the Civic's hood affectionately. "But your car has something mine doesn't, a check engine light that's been on since 2019, character." She smiled. "Text me about Friday. Or don't. But I hope you do." She drove away in silent electric luxury while Marcus climbed into his car that started on the third try and sounded like it was dying. He sat in the parking lot for several minutes, hands on the steering wheel, thinking about choices and consequences and what it meant to let someone new into a life he'd carefully constructed around absence and routine. His phone buzzed. "Lily, how did it go? Did you ask her out?" "Dad answer me," he typed back. "It went well. Home in 20 minutes. That's not an answer. 20 minutes. He drove home through familiar streets, past the high school where he'd teach Monday morning, past the grocery store where he bought Lily's favorite cereal, past all the markers of a small, contained life. The server rack was still humming in his workshop. The phone with 247 messages was still in its drawer. Iron Ghost was still there, dormant but not dead, waiting. When he pulled into his driveway, Lily was waiting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, looking exactly like her mother used to look when she was excited and impatient and bursting with questions. "Tell me everything," she demanded. "There's nothing to tell, Dad. You were gone for 4 hours. For coffee." "That's not nothing." Marcus climbed out of the Civic and sat next to her on the porch steps. The wood was cold through his jeans. "She wants to come to Trevor's dinner with me." "As my date?" Lily's eyes went wide. "And you said yes, right? Please tell me you said yes." "I said I'd think about it, Dad." "She's perfect. She's smart and pretty and she thinks you're amazing." "What is there to think about?" Marcus looked at his daughter, 14 years old and so certain about everything, the way you could only be certain when you hadn't yet learned how quickly everything could fall apart. "It's complicated. It's only complicated if you make it complicated. Mom died." "That's terrible and sad and unfair. But she died 5 years ago and you're still alive and Elena likes you and you clearly like her and I'm giving you permission to be happy." Lily grabbed his hand. "Stop punishing yourself for surviving." The words hit him like a physical blow. Marcus sat very still, feeling them settle into spaces he hadn't known were empty. "When did you get so smart?" he managed. "I had a good teacher." She squeezed his hand. "Text her. Say yes. Go to the dinner and let her stand next to you while Aunt Victoria is terrible. Then come home and tell me everything while we eat ice cream." Marcus pulled out his phone. Typed, "Friday. 6 p.m. I'll pick you up." Elena's response came immediately, "I'll be ready." "This is going to be spectacular." Lily read over his shoulder and squealed. "Dad. You did it. You have a date, I have dinner plans." "There's a difference." "Sure there is." She hugged him, fierce and sudden. "I'm proud of you." They sat together on the porch as afternoon became evening, as November cold settled in, as the neighborhood around them came alive with weekend sounds. Somewhere in his workshop, the server rack hummed. Somewhere in the encrypted files, the proof of who he'd been waited patiently. But here, now, on his porch with his daughter, Marcus was just a father preparing to face his family's judgment with someone brave enough to stand beside him. It felt like the beginning of something. He wasn't sure if that was terrifying or wonderful. Maybe it was both. The Sterling room occupied the 42nd floor of a glass tower that reflected the city like a mirror acknowledging its own vanity. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed San Francisco's glittering sprawl, each light a data point in the algorithm of ambition. Marcus stood in the elevator with Elena, watching the numbers climb, feeling his pulse keep time with the ascending floors. The elevator was the kind that cost more per square foot than most people's apartments, all brushed steel and ambient lighting that made everyone look like they'd been professionally retouched. Elena had her hand in his, her thumb tracing small circles on his palm. She wore a black dress that managed to be both elegant and devastating, her dark hair falling in waves that caught the light. The ghost emoji pin glinted on her shoulder like a private joke. She'd done her makeup with precision, dark eyes, red lips, but it was the confidence in her posture that made her magnetic. She looked like someone who belonged in rooms where decisions were made and fortunes were won. Marcus had worn the outfit she'd helped him pick out. Dark jeans that actually fit, a charcoal button-down, a blazer that Trevor would probably recognize as expensive. He'd drawn the line at new shoes. His old boots had sawdust in the treads and memories in the leather. Some compromises weren't worth making. You're thinking too much, Elena said without looking at him. I can feel it. I'm thinking about how we're about to walk into a room where my brother's boss will be sitting 3 feet from my sister-in-law who thinks I'm a cautionary tale about wasted potential. And I'm wondering if this is a terrible idea. Elena turned to face him fully, her expression serious. Marcus. You have nothing to prove to these people. We're here for Trevor. We're here because family shows up. What happens after that is just Victoria being Victoria, and you being you, and me being extremely attracted to how little you care about impressing anyone. I care about impressing you. You did that when you made pancakes for your daughter and taught a kid how to weld without losing a finger. Everything else is just confirmation bias. She straightened his collar even though it didn't need straightening. Besides, I promised Lily we'd come home with stories. Don't make me disappoint your daughter. She's scarier than Victoria, the elevator chimed. The doors opened onto a private vestibule where a host in a suit that cost more than Marcus's monthly salary checked their names against a tablet. The Sterling room spread beyond him, all white tablecloths and crystal stemware and people who looked like they measured their worth in market cap and real estate holdings. Victoria spotted them immediately. She'd positioned herself near the entrance, holding court in a white dress that probably required its own insurance policy. Her smile was professionally maintained, the kind that real estate agents perfected for open houses in neighborhoods they couldn't afford to live in. When she saw Elena on Marcus's arm, something flickered across her face: surprise, calculation, the rapid recalibration of someone whose dinner seating chart had just become tactically complicated. Marcus. Victoria air-kissed near his cheek, her perfume sharp enough to constitute assault. You brought the tutor. Elena extended her hand with the grace of someone who'd attended better parties than this and been bored at all of them. Elena Rodriguez. And actually, I'm here as Marcus's date tonight. Victoria's hand was limp in Elena's grip, her smile calcifying. Oh. How modern. The word landed like a judgment. I didn't realize you were seeing anyone. How long has this been going on? Marcus felt Elena's thumb press against his palm, a silent signal. Let me handle this. We met through your introduction, actually, he said mildly. So, thank you. Victoria's expression suggested she'd just realized she'd paid $3,000 to inadvertently set up her disappointing brother-in-law with a woman who was clearly out of his league. Well. Isn't that something? She recovered quickly, her sales training kicking in. Come in, come in. We're almost ready to sit down. Trevor appeared from the crowd, genuine relief washing over his face when he saw Marcus. He looked good, new suit, better haircut, the polish of someone who'd just been promoted and was still getting used to the altitude. Marcus. Elena, right? Great to meet you. He shook Elena's hand, then pulled Marcus into a hug that felt like an apology for everything that hadn't been said at Thanksgiving. I'm really glad you came. Congratulations on the promotion, Marcus said, and meant it. Trevor had always been smart, competent, the younger brother who'd followed the conventional path while Marcus had burned out spectacularly and publicly in ways the family still didn't fully understand. The room was filling with people whose names Marcus vaguely recognized from Trevor's occasional mentions. Victoria's brother Richard and his wife Miranda, both of them radiating the particular smugness of people whose money made money while they slept. A handful of Trevor's colleagues from Synergy Tech, talking in the shorthand of corporate hierarchy. And at the center of it all, James Reeves, Trevor's boss, the CEO who'd built Synergy Tech from a garage startup to a company worth $8 billion. James was 50s, silver-haired, the kind of man who wore expensive casual like a uniform. He had Trevor cornered near the bar, talking with the animation of someone explaining a vision that would require significant overtime to achieve. His wife Patricia stood nearby, smiling with the patience of someone who'd heard this speech before. Victoria had arranged the seating with the precision of a general positioning troops. Name cards marked each place, and Marcus found his at the far end of the table, tucked next to Lily's empty seat. The kids' table extension. Elena's card was beside his. She picked it up, examined it with the clinical interest of someone analyzing a specimen, then set it down without comment. Subtle, she murmured, that's Victoria's superpower. Cruelty disguised as logistics. They sat. The table stretched between them and the seats of power like a physical manifestation of Victoria's judgment. At the other end, Victoria held court with James on her right and Richard on her left, Trevor beside her looking vaguely uncomfortable in his moment of triumph. The message was clear: success sat at one end, and its absence sat at the other. Elena settled into her chair like she owned it, crossing her legs with deliberate casualness. She'd worn heels that probably cost more than Marcus's car payment, but her posture suggested she could take them off and sprint if necessary. He liked that about her, the combination of polished and practical, someone who understood that appearances were tactical but not essential. The first course arrived, small plates of something that looked more like architecture than food. Marcus picked up his fork and tried to figure out the correct approach. Elena caught his eye and grinned, mouthing pretentious while reaching for her wine. From the other end of the table, Victoria's voice carried with the projection of someone used to being heard. Marcus, I have to say, I'm surprised you could make it tonight. Don't you usually have parent-teacher conferences on Fridays? Scheduled them for next week, Marcus said evenly. How accommodating of you. Victoria sipped her wine, her smile sharp. Elena, how are the tutoring sessions going? Is there hope for Lily's future? Elena set down her fork with precise care. Lily is extraordinarily gifted. But I'm sure Marcus has told you that. Marcus thinks every student is gifted. It's sweet, really. Very egalitarian. Victoria's tone made egalitarian sound like a diagnosis. He believes everyone's special, which of course means no one is. Richard leaned forward, his hedge fund manager instincts detecting potential entertainment. Elena, what firm did you say you work for? Blackthorn Security. I'm a senior analyst. James Reeves's head turned at that, his CEO antenna picking up signals. Blackthorn? You're with Blackthorn? His interest was immediate and unfeigned. We use them for our infrastructure security, I know. I reviewed your system architecture last quarter. Elena's voice was professional, crisp. You've got solid fundamentals but some vulnerabilities in your third-party integrations. James set down his wine glass, fully engaged now. You worked on our assessment? I wrote it. The table's attention had shifted, power dynamics recalibrating. Victoria looked annoyed at losing control of the narrative. How nice. Computer stuff. She waved her hand dismissively. See, Marcus? This is the kind of career I meant. Elena has ambition. Elena certainly does, Marcus agreed, catching Elena's eye. She was trying not to smile. The entrees arrived, plates of food that belonged in galleries rather than stomachs. Conversation splintered into smaller groups. Marcus could hear Richard explaining cryptocurrency to Patricia, who looked like she was considering drowning herself in her soup. Trevor and James were talking about the promotion, Trevor's voice carrying the slightly manic edge of someone trying to convince himself he deserved his success. Victoria had drunk enough wine to lose her verbal governor. She leaned forward, her voice carrying. Marcus, I have to ask. How does it feel? Dating someone so accomplished? She gestured at Elena with her wine glass, some of the liquid sloshing. Doesn't it make you want to try harder? Be more. Trevor's face went pale. Victoria, what? I'm just saying, Elena is going places. Marcus is a shop teacher. That's a significant gap. Elena's expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted, like barometric pressure dropping before a storm. Is it? Well, yes. I mean, no offense, Marcus, but you work with your hands. Elena works with her mind, Marcus works with both. Elena's voice was silk over steel. Which is more than I can say for most people. Victoria laughed, the sound sharp and slightly unhinged. Oh honey, I appreciate loyalty, but let's be realistic. Marcus is a sweet guy, but he's not exactly in your league. The table went quiet. Miranda was staring into her wine glass like it might offer escape. Richard looked caught between amusement and discomfort. Trevor had his head in his hands. James was watching with the interest of someone observing a car crash in slow motion. Marcus felt Elena's hand find his under the table. Squeezing once. A signal. Let it play out. He squeezed back. Trust me, Miranda cleared her throat with forced brightness. Trevor, tell us about your promotion. What exactly does VP of Infrastructure Security entail? Trevor grabbed the lifeline gratefully. Right. So, basically, I'll be overseeing our entire digital protection framework. Making sure our systems are secure against emerging threats. It's a huge responsibility, James straightened, pride evident in his posture. Trevor's going to revolutionize how we approach cybersecurity. He's got vision. Real vision. He raised his glass. To Trevor. The best hire I've made in a decade. They all drank. Victoria beamed, vindicated. See, Marcus? Vision. Ambition. That's what success looks like. Marcus sipped his water, saying nothing. Elena's thumb was tracing circles on his palm again, patient, waiting. Richard leaned forward, his hedge fund curiosity engaged. Trevor, you mentioned you're implementing some new security protocols? Something cutting edge, Trevor nodded eagerly. We're upgrading to a framework based on something called Phantom Protocol. It's revolutionary. Military-grade encryption, adaptive threat response, basically unhackable. James shifted uncomfortably. It's complicated. Phantom Protocol was designed by a consultant years ago. Brilliant work, absolutely brilliant. Best security architecture I've ever seen. But the consultant himself disappeared. Elena set down her wine glass with deliberate care. Iron Ghost, the table went silent. It was like someone had paused the entire room. James stared at her. You know about Iron Ghost? Everyone in cybersecurity knows about Iron Ghost. Elena's voice was casual, but Marcus could feel the tension in her body. He's a legend. The best to ever do it. Victoria looked irritated at the shift in attention. Who cares about some computer nerd? We're celebrating Trevor. Elena ignored her focus on James. Your entire security infrastructure at Synergy Tech is based on Phantom Protocol, correct? Yes. It's the only reason we've never been successfully breached. The architecture is elegant, adaptive, years ahead of anything else on the market. Whoever designed it was a genius. James shook his head. We've been trying to find him for years. To hire him for upgrades, expansions. We offered $2 million for a 3-month consultation. He never responded. Victoria's eyes lit up with malicious glee. See? $2 million for 3 months of work. That's what real success looks like, Marcus. Not teaching kids to hammer nails together. Marcus set down his fork slowly, carefully. Victoria, I think you should stop talking now. Why? Because the truth hurts? Marcus, you're a nice guy, but Elena stood. The movement was fluid, controlled, but it commanded immediate attention. When she spoke, her voice cut through the room like a scalpel through tissue. He's sitting right next to you. Everyone froze. Forks stopped midway to mouths. Conversations died. Even the ambient noise of the restaurant seemed to pause. Victoria blinked. What? Elena turned to James, her posture perfect, her voice clear. Mr. Reeves, you've been looking for Iron Ghost for how long? James looked confused, glancing between Elena and Marcus. 5 years. Since he disappeared after that Pentagon consultation, and you've offered how much money over those 5 years? Multiple 7-figure contracts. Some 8-figure. He never responded to any of them. James's frustration was evident. I've had headhunters searching. Private investigators. Nothing. It's like he vanished. Elena looked at Marcus, and there was a question in her eyes. Permission. He held her gaze for a long moment, feeling the weight of what was about to happen. Then nodded once. Go ahead, Mr. Reeves, Elena said quietly. Meet Marcus Chen. Also known as MC Ironghost_MC. Founder of Phantom Protocol Security. The man who designed your entire infrastructure. The room exploded into noise. James stood so fast his chair rocked backward. Victoria's wine glass slipped from her hand, red wine spreading across white tablecloth like blood. Richard's mouth fell open. Trevor had gone absolutely white, his hands gripping the table edge. That's impossible, James said, but his voice carried no conviction. He was already reaching for his phone. Iron Ghost disappeared 5 years ago. Right around the time Marcus's wife was diagnosed with cancer. Elena pulled out her phone, swiping through screens with practiced efficiency. Funny coincidence, she turned her screen toward James, showing article after article, forum posts, archived photographs. Marcus caught glimpses of his younger self, sharper suit, harder eyes, the version of him that had commanded rooms and fee structures that made CEOs wince. Marcus founded Phantom Protocol in 2014, Elena continued, her voice carrying the weight of facts that couldn't be disputed. He consulted for 3 different administrations. He stopped the Darknet Massacre ransomware attack in 2019, the one that threatened 47 different power grids globally, remember that? She looked at James. He was charging $50,000 per hour at his peak. And he walked away from all of it. Victoria was shaking her head, her carefully constructed world crumbling in real time. That's ridiculous. Marcus is a shop teacher. He drives a Civic from 1997. He lives in a house worth less than my wine cellar, because he chose to. Elena's voice was gentle now, but firm. Because his wife was dying and his daughter needed him and he decided that being present was worth more than being powerful. James had his phone out, his fingers flying across the screen. His expression shifted from skepticism to shock to something like awe. Jesus Christ. Marcus Chen. How did I not connect? There's a Forbes article. The Phantom of Silicon Valley. They estimated your consulting firm's value at, he looked up, his eyes wide. You still own 40% equity in Phantom Protocol Security? Elena nodded. Last valuation put the company at $200 million. His shares alone are worth about $80 million. Victoria's face had gone from flushed to pale, her perfect makeup suddenly stark against bloodless skin. The wine glass had shattered in her hand. She didn't seem to notice. 80 million, she whispered. Richard's hedge fund brain was recalculating everything. Marcus, you live in a house worth maybe $300,000. You drive a car that should be in a museum. Why the hell would you? It's paid off, Marcus said quietly. It has Lily's bedroom. It has Sarah's garden. Why would I need more? The table was silent. Everyone was staring at him now, seeing him differently, recalibrating their assumptions against this new information. Marcus felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with secrets and everything to do with being truly seen. Trevor was the first to speak, his voice rough. "Oh my God. Marcus. I remember now. Dad's funeral. You took a call and disappeared for an hour, the Pentagon. There was a situation with the Defense Network, and that time I asked you for help with a tech issue at my old company. You were being actively breached by a state-sponsored hacking group. I stopped it in about 40 minutes, you told me you knew a guy." Marcus met his brother's eyes. "I was the guy." Victoria was spiraling, her hands shaking. "But you let us think, you said you quit your job. You said you wanted to spend time with Lily. You let us believe you failed." "I let you believe what you wanted to believe," Marcus said, and his voice was tired. "I quit because my wife was dying and my daughter needed me. I chose to teach because I love it. I never said I failed." "You assumed I did." "You assumed he failed," Elena added, "because he didn't perform success the way you expected. Because he chose presence over profit. Because he measured his life in moments instead of market value."